All right, hey-ho, here we go. Tim Van Vorten, Lily Zhao, Brandon Cruz, and you for the next half hour. It is the FOX6 Sports Blitz. Time of year, we have all sorts of things to talk about. Let's take a look at our starting lineup. The Packers preseason is past tense. So what's the future of the kicking position in Green Bay? The Brewers ride the road roller coaster. Quote the Ravens for say what, and our high school hotshots right on target. You don't cut down a lineup like that.
Oh, I loved how we bounced back. I think we practiced well. It started with practice. In the joint practice, I think we practiced pretty well, and it came out and it translated to the game, so it was good.
All week going into this game this week, it was about, getting our get back from last week. We don't feel like we performed the best way that we should have. So all this week, it was just about that mentality, that mindset, low pad level, quick off the ball, and just executing the plays.
Never hurts to get your get back, Billy. Does it matter?
Quote.
Did it help the Packers to win this game going toward the regular season, particularly in convincing fashion?
I think so, but I think, the win is one thing, but the production they got out of the young guys, especially after that effort we saw in Denver, I think was night and day. And these guys talked about it even, during joint practice earlier in the week with the Ravens. I mean, they really wanted to come out and punch this team in the mouth. They certainly did. The end result was a win, but I think the bigger win, though, again, was seeing, those guys that were really fighting for a roster spot put their best foot forward, literally, and make a claim to say, I belong on your 53-man roster. I think a lot of guys certainly made a case for that. Emmanuel Wilson, he was one of them. But I think a lot of guys seriously made their case to be on the 53, and it's going to be really hard to see how they kind of shape this roster because of the talent that really showed out on Saturday.
You were there for the joint practice on Thursday as well, so a good week for the Packers this week against the Ravens. Matt LaFleur with those aviator glasses, he looked like he felt a whole lot better about everything going on this weekend. Brandon, Lily alluded to putting your best foot forward. It looked to me, in watching the game, watching the preseason, watching training camp, the job to kick for the Green Bay Packers was all wrapped up by Anders Carlson after he made that 54-yard field goal on Saturday afternoon, and then he misses a 32-yarder at the end of the game to open the door wide open again on that issue.
And I think that's been the problem for him throughout this camp. He's hit all these big ones, but then misses ones that look like they should be made easily, whereas Greg Joseph was a lot more consistent throughout training camp. I do agree that this was Carlson's job to lose, and I'm really curious to see if he did lose it, because it just doesn't seem like they have the confidence in him that we thought maybe they would by bringing in a competitor throughout camp. And he just never solidified that job. So to me, when you look at this in the body of work, you see what's happened. And to me, if I'm looking at this objectively, I think Greg Joseph's the one that walks away with this job to start the season.
Well, I was going to say conversely to that, though. Matt LaFleur was asked, is your current kicker on the roster right now? He didn't say yes or no, but he said, that's not a question for me. Probably, deferring to Brian Gutekunst, their GM, but he said, we'll also see what happens around the league. So that was kind of telling to say, I don't think he's saying that if he's confident that potentially their kicker is on the roster. So very intriguing to see what they do. But like you mentioned, Brandon, I don't think Anders certainly made a case for himself to say, hey, I've won that job.
So then Matt LaFleur is asked about the backup quarterback position, which involves Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt. He says, like our kicking competition, a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, a little bit of evaluation, what goes on around the league. How much of an issue is this, if at all?
I don't think it's a big issue, but I do understand where there's a lot of concern if anything happens to Jordan Love. But I think what you look at is the body of work that these two put together, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt. Pratt just out of college, and you have Clifford, who's really been in the system just a little longer and been able to show that he can handle it, and he's capable of understanding the concepts and what they're trying to run. Now, the execution, it's been up and down throughout this training camp. So to me, I think as a backup, as you start, this is where you go. You stick with Clifford, and then you hope Pratt stays along for the practice squad. The other thing is you keep your eyes open and see what happens Tuesday, where other quarterbacks may go. I don't know if there's anybody out there right now that jumps out to the Packers front office, but to me at this point, if you're going to be safe, you stick with Clifford because you know what you have there.
We're talking about Tuesday because that's the roster cut-down deadline. Right. The NFL regular season rosters is set at 53 players. You go through training camp with 90. And as you watch that video, it's not the same player. Carlson is 17, Pratt is 17. If they both make the team, they won't both wear the same number. But that's the situation going through training camp. So we'll see which one of those guys gets to keep it. Guys do fight for jobs, Lily. They show out in the preseason, and sometimes they just disappear forever. Maybe they force their way onto a roster. Could Aaron Mosby have done that? He wasn't a guy who was in the discussion as you went into this training camp.
I was hoping you were going to point him out, right? Because he certainly had a standout preseason. And I think when you're making big splash plays defensively, you're certainly going to catch the eye of your coaches and the Packers brass. I certainly think he made a case. He could be the surprise addition to the roster because, again, he brings depth at that position, and he is able to get out there and, get the strip sack and then come back with an interception the week prior. Obviously made a big play as well for a takeaway. So he is certainly making his case to say, listen, I might not have been on your initial 53, but I want to be on this team, and I'm capable of getting you these big defensive takeaways and these big plays, so consider me. I think that's what the preseason's all about, so we'll see if the Packers do consider him for the roster spot. And
he's number 53, so some are appropriate. Yeah, right. I want to be on that 53. Big, tough, strong football players who are all a little nervous. Not all of them, but some of them are really nervous over the next couple of days, trying to find out what's going to happen next for them. All right, that's the football story. We get to halftime here in our opening segment, which brings us to the Milwaukee Brewers. They go on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals and the Oakland Athletics, and they come home. They're still very comfortably in first place, and they still feel very good about themselves. Brandon, they had a lot go right this week. They had a couple things go wrong, though, too. And to me, Nick Mears, who's now on the injured list, but the only place you can throw a pitch that Matt Carpenter is going to hurt you is where he threw it. You cannot make these mistakes because it's a domino effect, if you ask me. They were in complete control of a baseball game. He makes a mistake to Matt Carpenter, for goodness sakes, who then brings the game closer. You have to go to Devin Williams in that game, which you shouldn't have had to do, which then carries over to the next game when Williams pulls a save.
Yeah, and when you see Nick Mears come out there, I mean, yes, he might be the weakest link in this bullpen. He just came over from Colorado earlier this summer in a trade, and he struggled there. They thought that maybe he was tipping pitches. Maybe he tipped one there as well as grooving it. But the thing is, when you have a team that, like the Cardinals, who's doing everything they can, you can't give a guy like Carpenter, who's been in the big leagues forever, an opportunity to make you look like a fool, and he does just that. And then, like you said, it was a domino effect, and then the bullpen all of a sudden just doesn't show up the rest of that series. They lose 2 of 3, and then you also get a problem with Devin Williams later in the week where he wakes up with a sore left shoulder, and they don't use him because of that. And maybe that all stemmed from getting extra work in a game he shouldn't have been in.
Shouldn't have been in is the key word there. But then the Brewers, as they've done all year, Lily, kind of regroup and go out and win 2 of 3 in Oakland. And they have all these young relievers in the minor leagues kind of pushing to get here, too. Jacob Mizorowski, Craig Yoho, D.L. Hall. So there's pressure on the guys at the major league level. But the pressure doesn't seem to get to this team, either individually or collectively.
Yeah, and that's why I think they've navigated the season as well as they have, right? Because we talk about, the guys they lost to start the season, the guys who were injured to start the season, the guys who were injured in season. You lose Christian Yelich, but hey, the Brewers are still, with a double-digit lead in the NL Central. They're finding ways to win. The pressure does not get to them. But like you mentioned, you touched on the bullpen, right? These guys have really been good for the Brewers. Again, injuries, all that stuff kind of is making things kind of known for these guys to say, I have to perform if I want to keep a job, because you don't know the younger guys coming up to help this team. But the good problem is they do have a lot of depth in that room, but we'll see what happens with that Brewers bullpen. But again, the guys were called up in relief to perform, Trevor McGill and Yoel Payam, so I think has had a phenomenal month. These guys are certainly performing, and then, they're helping out starters like Frankie Montas. But I think the good problem is that the Brewers have those extra arms they can go to, but we'll see kind of if they make their way into the regular season.
We're looking at Montas here. He had a pretty good outing today in Oakland after 1 bad inning, 4 runs allowed. San Francisco Giants, much bigger payroll. They come, but much different situation. Are you familiar with this team at all?
A little bit, just a little
just
bit.
A little.
No, this is a team that's still technically fighting for a wild card. So they are coming into town with something to play for, but they don't have the arms that the Brewers have. They also have been struggling at the plate. I mean, they just blew 2 leads in Seattle over the weekend, a scuffling Seattle team. So you should be able to catch this team in a good spot if you're the Brewers. Brewers. But the problem for the Brewers right now is it's similar to what we saw going into the All-Star break, where their bullpen is tired or seems to be overused because of the fact that their starters can't get out of the sixth inning. And again, when you see that happen and then you see what happened in St. Louis, you have to wonder, okay, Monday's a good day. Everyone gets the day off. But if they can get a bigger start on Tuesday, then that sets the table for the rest of the week for the bullpen to be rested and ready to go. And I think that's what you have to worry about when you face the Giants, is making sure your starters go deeper into the games, because they should be able to against a lineup that hasn't been producing a lot of runs.
And they rode Montas today. Even with that 4-run inning, they still stayed with him, which was interesting. Here's Colin Ray. He's been just a revelation.
He really has. And you're talking about going deep into games, right? He's going at least 6 to 6 2/3 or 7 innings for this Brewers team. And he's getting quality wins for this team as well. I mean, he helps the Brewers win against the A's. And what we've seen from Colin Ray is just that steady arm, right? They needed kind of a steady presence in their starting rotation. Colin Ray gets it. He's a veteran. Pat Murphy loves him. He loves what he's able to do for this team. And the fact that Colin Ray has been so consistent has been really key for these starters.
You talked about Pat Murphy, Brandon. I don't think we could go a week without talking about his impact on this baseball team.
No, and it shows. You talked about this team not stressing out, not freaking out about the fact that they're losing these games or feeling the pressure. No, because it's the way they are managed. It's the way that he sets the tone with this team in the clubhouse, during games, after games, before games. It's a very calm and positive outlook, and he gives all these guys the ability to believe in themselves and remain confident even when they're struggling. I mean, we've seen Bryce Durang struggle at the plate, but that doesn't matter. He still gets a late hit in the game today that gives them an opportunity to possibly tie the game. And that, to me, is what you get out of a manager who deserves, to me, to be the manager of the year.
The Brewers have 32 games to go in the regular season. We have much more to go tonight on the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. Come on back for more of that right after this.
Do I vote? I don't even know if I vote for her.
You really want to ask that question out of the gate?
I just like getting people's attention with something.
My significant other think he's sexy, so.
Wow. That was interesting. Was that Taylor Swift?
The quality of the bike is not guaranteed. Usually they're really good, but, you know, make sure the chain's been oiled up, 3-in-1 oil, everything's moving smoothly, right? Don't want to see a chain pop, don't want to see it get stuck. Don't want that on video, you know, so we'll have to see.
I mean, you talk about a head coach that's prepared. I mean, he comes in to Green Bay for the traditional bike ride to practice, but he was inspecting all the bikes. How big of a deal is that, right?
Pretty important.
I know, it is important. But obviously, a lot of fun had between the Ravens and Packers, enjoying that tradition as they had their joint practice on Thursday. It's game week for the Badgers. And when you look at this season, there are so many changes because of the Big Ten's new teams, the new schedule, the way things look. And the Badgers have a new quarterback. What do you think Luke Fickell looks at as he goes into this season with, I think, a little more pressure on him to have success?
Not ranked in the preseason polls for the first time in forever, right? They do have the starting quarterback who has played college football at a high level. He had one real good season, a couple of lesser seasons at Miami of Florida, and the Badgers are going to have to hope that he provides some leadership. Last season was a disappointment. I think most people would agree, but the Badgers sing the praises of Tanner Mordecai and the leadership he provided and the guttiness he showed at the quarterback position. But he gets lost a little bit because the team didn't perform well. It's interesting to see, for me, if Tyler Van Dyke is going to be that leader and translate to results or not.
And what do you think? I mean, how big of a deal is the quarterback position at Wisconsin? I mean, years past, it's always been their offensive line and running game. Quarterback kind of took a step back. Is it the same way now?
I think it's a little bit different just because, you know, Phil Longo, right? He came in last year, the hype was real, the air raid offense. We were going to see a lot of passing touchdowns, a lot of yards in the air. That didn't really come to fruition in their first season. I think now, in his second year as offensive coordinator, you're bringing in a quarterback that ran a similar system per se at Miami in Tyler Van Dyke. So he has the skills to kind of be that air raid quarterback that the Badgers really want. And I think, you know, he has the physical tools to do so. I think for him, it's also important to come back and say, listen, I was a starter for 3 years at Miami. I kind of struggled there late, and that's why I didn't get that start that last year. So I'm going to come to Wisconsin, new change of scenery, get back on my feet, and prove that to you know, my doubters why I was named the starting quarterback. So I do believe that Tyler Van Dyke will hopefully be that, you know, big arm for the Badgers offense this season.
He is on the Johnny Unitas watch list as they go into the season. I spoke about running back. Is Ches Malusi the guy?
Well, he's going to be iron jocked up. He's taken over the mantle from Braylon Allen. He's done everything right except stay healthy in Madison, right? People have been impressed by the way he's carried himself and what he's done, what he's said. But he hasn't been able to stay out on the field enough to really show that he's somebody. And you get injuries as a running back, that usually takes a little bit away from your game. The Badgers, to me, he's about the most familiar player you have, though. Usually for the Badgers, you come back year in and year out, you know what they're going to deal with. How many offensive players would you even know carrying over from the last couple seasons?
Basically him. Right. And then on the defensive side, maybe one guy in Hunter Waller. And that's it. So it'll be an interesting season. Week 1, Western Michigan. Week 2, South Dakota. And then it's Alabama. I think we'll see where they stand come week 3 of this season. Well, former Badgers quarterback Miles Burkett, he's named the starting quarterback at Albany. The Franklin alum spent the past 2 seasons with the Badgers, but didn't play in a game last season. He earned the nod over Trey Lindsey, last year's backup quarterback at Albany. And the Predators have traded Admirals goalie Yaroslav Askarov to the Sharks. This happened on Friday. He won 30 games and had a 2.39 goals against average last season with the Ads. In return, the Predators get a forward named David Edstrom, another goalie named Magnus Chorna, and a first-round pick in next year's draft. So we'll see how that works out for the Predators and, in turn, the Admirals. Coming up, our high school hotshot. Stay with us.
Welcome back. He was introduced to a sport by his grandfather, and little did he know that one day his high school would start a team and he'd be able to represent them at state competitions. Here's this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
Hi, I'm Reese Hoffensberger. I'm a junior at Brookfield Central, and I shoot trap. So probably around 6th grade, my papa bought me my first shotgun. He taught me how to shoot trap. And then in 7th grade, I got into a trap team. Well, we just did it in my great-grandma's backyard with a little trap thrower, so we didn't even score. He just kind of sent him out there. I probably hit 1 out of every 20. It's a blast shooting with him, and I'm so glad that he introduced me into this sport, and I'll be forever grateful for it. My freshman year, the team was mainly just like, you come out and shoot. There wasn't a lot of competition aspect, and then this past year, we decided to get into a league. We sent like 7 kids to state this year. A bunch of kids placed in the top 50, so it was really, really cool. I placed 21st at state. We shoot in rounds. Each round consists of 25 shots. There's 5 stands, and you take 5 shots and then you move to the next stand.
All move. 5, 5, 3, 4.
So the trap is actually the thing that throws the clay pigeons itself. Clay pigeons comes from like the origin of trap shooting, where like they would just use pigeons. So now it's clay discs, but a little different. I played football and I ran track, and then I did do trap shooting my freshman year. I would say I probably enjoy all of them about the same. I think if anything, I'd probably enjoy track the most. Because it's sort of like trap shooting, it's all in the details, right? Like when you can fine tune those things, your times just get faster and faster and faster. Earlier this summer, I went on a mission trip to Ecuador. We went to a camp called El Refugio, just outside of Quito in Ecuador, which is their capital. We helped take down old fences, pave new roads, dig trenches, help boost the infrastructure. And then we also went out to a church in this village called Cahabamba, where we met these kids, and it was just like the coolest thing. These kids really didn't have a lot, but they just had so much joy. It was definitely a life-changing summer for me. The Lord has blessed me so much, and so why not be joyful? Hi, I'm Reese Hoffensberger. I'm on the Brookfield Central Trap team. This year I shot a 50 straight. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
And his experience in Ecuador has Reese interested in pursuing a medical degree to continue more mission work abroad. It's pretty cool. Meanwhile, week 1 of the high school Blitz had so many big moments, and we had to choose one. Here's the top play from this week's high school Blitz. There's Kenosha Bradford Sebastian DeRosa, short throw to Aaron Hamp, who bobbled it, but hauls in the nice pass there to, and then he's off to the races for the touchdown. But look at that catch, the concentration, the good hands. Nice catch, young man. Meanwhile, week 2 of the Fox 6 High School Blitz rolls on, and here's our game of the week. I'll head to Grafton as the Blackhawks take on the Port Washington Pirates in a rematch of last year's Level 2 playoffs. Be sure to tune into our High School Blitz this Friday on Fox 6 News at 10 with Brandon Cruz. We'll be right back.
Busy week upcoming in sports, Brandon.
Yeah, and it's big for the Brewers to have tomorrow off before a quick homestand with the Giants, and then they head to Cincinnati, where Saturday's game right here on Fox 6.
And guess what? The Badgers kick off their season on Friday night at 8 p.m. A late one for the Badgers, but they do host Western Michigan.
And then we have racing here in town, the IndyCar, back for the first time since 2015 at the Milwaukee Mile. Big year for IndyCar. You raced at Road America, coming back from Milwaukee Mile. 2 races, Saturday night and then Sunday afternoon. So it all starts to collide here. High school football, as you talked about, and a lot of good stuff out there brewing.
Cut day Tuesday, too.
Cut day in the NFL. But nervous Packers between now and then for sure. Maybe Packers fans, too. See you.